Time now for Focus, and today we turn our attention to Afghanistan, a budding democracy which faces a big test this weekend. 13 million Afghans are expected to head to the polls to vote for their next president in what will be the country's first transition from one democratically elected leader to another. Well, 11 candidates are in the running, but whoever wins has their work squarely cut out for them. A France 24 team reports.
Kabul is swarming with Afghan policemen and soldiers. Each and every polling station is a potential target for terrorist attacks. One of the frontrunners in the Afghan presidential elections is holding a large political meeting. On this day, former economy minister Ashraf Ghani is receiving the official support of powerful warlords. Many of these men were enemies in the past. They're now united by the same goal, the conquest of power. Here you'll find former commanders of Afghanistan's Northern Alliance, sitting side by side with Taliban who've been detained in Guantanamo. Sitting in the middle is Abdul Rashid Dostum, a fearsome warlord representing Afghanistan's Uzbek community. If Ghani wins the presidential race, the man will be vice president. Here, many speeches favor references to jihad or holy war, a sure way to get the crowds electrified.
In the past, we've proved that with determination and solidarity, we were able to defeat world superpowers.
During the past decade, Afghanistan has not seen the rise of strong political parties. This means politicians rely on alliances, however unnatural.
We don't want to look at their past. We want to look at our future.
You'll find warlords in every political party. Mujahideens are everywhere, whether on Ghani's side or Dr. Abdullah's side.
But even though they're warlords, you'll still vote for them, right?
Yes, because they fought for our country, so they deserve to be in power.
Back in their home provinces, these warlords reign supreme, and it's often their prerogative to supervise the security of elections. 13 years after NATO forces began their military intervention in Afghanistan, warlords' grip on power is stronger than ever. This is one of the mottos of this underdog candidate.
This house belongs to Abdul Rashid Dostum, and you can see these ugly buildings. 99% of them are built by corrupt money.
Sultan Zoy has branded himself as the anti-corruption candidate. Because of his stance, he's now on the sidelines of these elections with no political allies and no chances of winning the ballot.
Each year, the Afghan government receives $4 billion, which end up missing. This country needs a real, efficient anti-corruption agency.
According to NGO Transparency International, Afghanistan is the world's most corrupted country alongside Somalia and North Korea.
All kinds of fraud, both fraud by election officials in the headquarters, by election workers in the field, and by government employees as chiefs of police, as governors, as ministers, as members of parliament. They're all involved in fraud right now. All of them.
Looking back at the last presidential elections in 2009, the UN said that 1/3 of votes were fraudulent. 5 years later, there seems to be no improvement to the situation. In Kabul, citizens must queue for hours, sometimes days, in hopes of getting their voting cards. Most here have no illusions on the state of Afghanistan's democracy.
Only the Almighty could stop electoral fraud from happening.
I came here at 6 a.m. I'm number 16, but over 100 people have already stepped inside to get registered. Corruption starts here, so imagine what it's like in the grand scheme of things.
The country has no electoral registers. Anybody can sign up anywhere. An estimated 19 million voting cards are in circulation for only 13 million voters. Meanwhile, those who have extra voting cards can sell them back to political parties for a variable profit.
Unfortunately, we have no computers, no database, so we can't identify the people who vote. And it's like that across the country. So there's no way we can tell if someone is registered elsewhere.
Besides the frauds, there's also the daunting task of organizing elections in a country at war. Providing security to voters is not always possible. Despite all this, the spokesman for the Electoral Commission wants to remain optimistic.
These are the ballots we're sending across the country. We hope they'll arrive in time for the vote. Out of the 6,000 polling stations, security services have identified 414 that are just too dangerous for the vote to take place. They'll remain closed because of threats posed by the Taliban.
few days after this sequence was shot, the Taliban attacked the central headquarters of the Electoral Commission. Because so many threats are looming over these elections, the UN has sent only a limited number of observers to monitor the ballots. Meanwhile, political negotiations are still underway. In his tent, candidate Ghani is receiving more support for his campaign. These clan leaders from the Panjshir Valley north of Kabul have come here to swear their allegiance and seal the promise of their votes. In Afghanistan, the era of tribal alliances and warlords is far from over.
And we'll have more on those elections in Afghanistan in the next hour of news, which follows right after this short break. Do stay tuned to France 24.